welcome to today's video. Today's video I am starting to go over those raid ranks I unveiled in my last video, and I am starting with, I'm going to be breaking them down, the characters and why I rank them down over various tiers over the next little while, and I'm going to be breaking them into Blaster, Brawler, Controller, Protector, and Supporter, which are their roles, so that will cover every single character in the game and kind of break it down so I don't do all the characters at once. So I am starting off with Blaster. The reason this video didn't come out yesterday was I actually tried to record it yesterday, but I talked too much and this video ended up being about an hour and 10 minutes straight of me talking, and nobody wants that, so I decided I was going to redo it in a bit different of a fashion. So some major points of note is I'm not talking about Killmonger. He will come in a later video. The reason I'm not talking about him is because, well, I don't really know enough about him yet and the rest of the Wakandans. So I'm going to do like a theory placement once I dig into him a little more, and then I'm going to replace him once the full Wakandan team comes out. But I will be including Ultron and every other character in the game. So let's start this. First off, Ultron. What do you need to know about Ultron's kit? Basically, he's the best character in the game. He's pretty fast, he hits hard, he does a lot with every one of his moves, and definitely has the best summon in the game. And this definitely translates in how we rank him in raids. You can see here, he is an ultimate yes in general. With synergy, he is an ultimate yes. And with suicide, on a suicide team, he is an ultimate yes. So basically, there is no bad situation to use Ultron on. He is amazing for every single situation in this. Use him if you have him, and I'm pretty sure if you do have him, you're one of those like 3-4 character players now. You already know that. So for these next few, I'm going to do the next 6 at 3 at a time in order to save some time, because again there's a lot of characters here and these ones are the ones that are most explainable. So let's do this. First off, we have HYDRA Sniper. He's not very fast. His special doesn't really do much. It just gives offense up to himself and allies. His passive isn't very useful. His basic is again single target, not much speed. Aim Assaulter has a very high speed for the game, and his special gives him a chance to give himself speed up for like 4 turns, and he also it's a low ability energy, so by the time that he's done being sped up, he can re-speed himself up for that many turns, so he gets a lot of turns and does some pretty decent damage. Then we have HYDRA Grenadier. Again, he's slow, doesn't do a lot of damage. His special clears some positive effects, and at least his damage is splash damage, so it hits the primary and adjacent targets. So how does this all reflect in raids? First off, just generally speaking, Aim Assaulter is a bit of a shock. I have him all the way as a basic Y, and that's because he does go very fast, so he's fast and does some damage, which is really a good start. Now, the other two, HYDRA Sniper, he's all the way down in basic no territory because he's so slow, he just doesn't really serve a purpose in the long battles that are raids. And the HYDRA Grenadier is just a little step up as a special no. You really shouldn't use any of those HYDRA characters in raids, but the Grenadier at least can dispel. But the Aim Assaulter is the best one of those characters, but you really still shouldn't use him in a raid generally. Now, if you can count synergy, none of these characters improve, and actually Aim Assaulter goes down. Why is this? Well, basically characters with synergy tend to be better. These characters don't really improve enough to really justify using them. However, there is one other step here, suicide. If you need to take down one node, how do these characters work? Aim Assaulter, he goes down again to another tier, so he's down to a special no, because if you're just trying to take down one node, he's not going to really get enough turns to justify it. And HYDRA Grenadier goes down to a basic no. He's just, again, not putting out enough damage to really justify using him. And HYDRA Sniper does move up from a basic no to a special no, because that offense up on a bunch of other allies could be useful in very specific situations, but he's not the best choice by any means. So that's how those 3 characters do in raids. The answer is not too well. Aim Assaulter is probably the best choice. Now to keep it going, we're going to do another set of 3 here. Here we have Hand Archer. He's a bit above average speed. His basic is just ordinary. His special is AoE damage, but it's not a lot of damage, and clears exactly 1 buff from every enemy. On the plus side, he does have very high focus, so he can take Taunt away from Thanos. but it's only 1 buff. Then you have Mercenary Sniper. Some decent damage, but it's really just single target damage, nothing else. Not very fast. And then Ravager Boomer. Ravager Boomer actually hits pretty hard. He's pretty fast. Can actually assist on other Ravagers' turns. And his special is some adjacent and positive damage. And it actually works pretty good. So how does this count for raids? Well, generally speaking, you can see here that the Hydra Sniper, why did I say Hydra? Sorry about that. Mercenary Sniper is a special Y. The Hand Archer is a basic Y. And finally, Ravager Boomer is an ultimate Y. So you can see there's a little bit of a progression as the characters go along. Generally speaking, Hand Archer's Dispel isn't really worth as much in raids because you normally need to clear more than 1 buff from the enemies. So he kind of falls down. His damage isn't good enough. Mercenary Sniper I put a little higher, but you can probably make an argument he deserves to be lower because he hits hard, but he's not very fast. So he might deserve to go down, but I put him as a special Y for now because he hits decently hard. And Ultimate Y, Ravager Boomer, is actually not that bad of a minion. He hits hard, he does some adjacent damage, and at least he's fast. So that's why I have them there for this purpose. And now moving to Synergy, you have Ravager Boomer doesn't move, Mercenary Sniper doesn't move, and Hand Archer doesn't move. There's not really much to discuss in these synergies because, well, none of the synergies are really worth running in a raid. Only thing is Ravager Boomer does have a chance to assist on Yondu, and Yondu is a pretty good raid character. But if you're talking about suicide nodes, well, they all get worse. Mercenary Sniper takes the least fall because, again, that's single target damage. It's first turn, so that's pretty good. Ravager Boomer, he falls down to a no tier, but he's ultimate no because he's still fast and does some damage, but he's not really what you're looking for to take down a node. None of these are great suicide characters. These are all steps up from the first 3 characters, but you really shouldn't be using any of these in raids. The one you can make the most argument for would be Ravager Boomer due to his speed and splash damage. Now I'm going to talk about the next 2 characters alone, and I'm going to keep probably clumping in groups of 2 for the next little while, and then when we get near the end, I'll start talking on characters of 1. So here we have Mercenary Soldier. Again, he's really not that fast. His basic is some decent damage, his special is some splash damage, and his ultimate, or his passive is basically useless. Not really a lot to talk about. And the Shield Trooper is actually an amazing character, especially for a minion, because every time people adjacent to him are attacked, he counterattacks on their behalf. He does some good damage, has a chance of rewinding some turn meters, so he's actually a really good character. I highly like Shield Trooper. So how does this really work? You could see in raids, Mercenary Soldier is kind of just with Mercenary Sniper. Not that great. Usable, again, but that's just damage. There's not a lot to the kit, but he's just a special Y. You really shouldn't go there. But Shield Trooper? Shield Trooper is all the way up as a special why not, which means he's very good in raids. And I would suggest if you're going to use him, just put him next to a couple of tanks or a tank and someone that is targeted a lot and let him take out the other nodes or the other team without really doing much, because his counterattacks can be deadly. Now, Synergy, again, Mercenary Soldier, he doesn't really gain much because there's not really a good team to throw him in with, but Shield Trooper goes all the way up to an basic yes, which is really, really high. Only reason he's not higher is because his best team, which is the Fury Shield team, is probably better when he's on the bench for raids. Not for other modes, but for raids, Shield Trooper's the one that makes the most sense to leave out. So he hurts a little bit there, but he really goes up with Synergy. And now for a suicide node, he is actually pretty usable. He's a special why not. There's better characters to use to take down one node, but again, that counterattack is just huge, and if you're in a node that's probably pretty hard to take down, there's probably a lot of enemies, probably a lot of attacks, good chances he'll do a lot of damage even without taking a turn. So that's why Shield Trooper makes big jumps up and is a really usable and good character for raids, but Mercenary Soldier just falls behind. Here I'm just going to talk about one character, and that is Wasp. Wasp is fast, does some good damage, actually has a more unique kit than the average character we've been talking about so far, has a dodge chance, on dodge gains charged, when charged can stun with the special, AoE damage with the ultimate. The all-around good kit. The issue is she's a little underwhelming. There's really not a great team to put her on. So how does this really show up when I'm ranking her in raids? You can see here she's an ultimate Y. Again, she's a good character. Her kit's nice. Her animations are fantastic. And the reason that you really should use other characters is just she doesn't fit in very well. I think one day she'll be a much better character just by a better fit. But right now there's just too many other characters that fit. And you drop her in a team, it's just going to feel a little awkward. So Synergy, she doesn't really gain much, so she stays just where she is. And Suicide, she gets hurt a little bit because her big AoE damage isn't on her first turn. So maybe a first turn stun, maybe not. A little too RNG dependent, so not really worth bringing into a Suicide node. And overall, not the best character for raids at this given moment. But because of her speed and her interesting kit, I could see that changing in the future. Okay, now we have two minions I'm going to talk about here. First off, Shield Assault. Great character, fast. All of the attacks hit more than one character. Her basic hits usually primary and adjacent, so that's usually 3 characters. And her special hits all the characters, and she is vital for a shield team. Then we have KREE CYBORG, who is not as fast, but he hits hard. He hits really hard, and he gains speed up from the rest of the KREE. So both of these are going to be affected by Synergy. So let's see how this works for raids. First off, you can see right off the bat, well, maybe not right off the bat, but as you look in, KREE CYBORG on his own is only an ultimate Y, while Shield Assault is an ultimate Y not. Well, what's the difference here? KREE CYBORG on his own just isn't very fast, while Shield Assault is fast enough and provides enough to a team that is reasonable to use, and also that AoE damage is pretty good in its first turn, so that's a good start. However, with Synergy, KREE CYBORG jumps all the way up to an ultimate Y not, right, which is where Shield Assault is, and that's mainly because of the gaining the speed and being with the KREE team, which is actually pretty good. But Shield Assault again takes another massive jump all the way up to an ultimate yes, because she is possibly the most vital part to a good Fury Shield team in raids, because she gives everyone a chance for critical attacks, a critical chance. Anyways, so that's really massive. They're both great characters, and they both work even better with Synergy. So if you have these minions and they're built up, they are definitely usable in raids. As opposed to the other characters, there's just more to their kits. They provide more to each other. There's Synergy on, like Synergy especially, it's great. Now you go to Suicide. Shield Assault falls down a little to basic why not, because she does have first turn AoE damage, which means it hits everybody, but it's just not as good as some other characters. KREE CYBORG actually takes a higher step up because his single target damage is so intense on the first turn. He can take down some squishier characters in one shot. So KREE CYBORG all around is a good character, but it's better with other KREE or for a Suicide team, while Shield Assault can be used well on her own, but probably not for a Suicide team, but definitely throw her with the rest of S.H.I.E.L.L. Okay, now here's an interesting couple of characters. I'm going to do 2 characters here. First, we have BULLSEYE. He's pretty fast, and all of his attacks do some pretty decent damage. His ultimate does some great damage, and has some pretty interesting wording in his kit based on crit damage and crit chance. So he has high crit chance and high chance for crit damage. So when he does do critical hits, they do a lot of damage. Issue is, all he does is single target damage, and he's fast, but there's characters that do more damage, and it's just single target damage, no utility whatsoever. While you have KORATH here, who at first glance is very similar. They're both very fast. KORATH is faster. KORATH gets speed up on spawn, and every time he gets a kill has a chance to get speed up. He has a very nice passive based on that. Not on kill. Anytime an enemy dies, he will gain speed up. So he basically has speed up all the time if you're in a raid, and he's doing some really, really good damage with that ultimate. That special gives him a chance to work around taunts by forcing taunt on someone else and getting an assist, and his basic applies slow. So all of his moves do something special, and he's just more unique, and he goes super fast. which is why KORATH is definitely the better character between KORATH and BULLSEYE, even though their kits at first glance is similar. So how does this really affect them in raids? Right off the bat, you can see that BULLSEYE is a basic Y, while KORATH is an ultimate why not. Again, that utility makes KORATH very usable, and that added speed and pretty much the constant speed up really makes him a threat in raids. While BULLSEYE, he's fast and the damage comes, but it's just not enough to make up for the fact that his kit is just empty. I really think he deserves a buff in the future, and I think he will, but you never know. There's definitely more needed characters for buff that have a little bit more fanfare. However, let's see how synergy affects these characters. BULLSEYE does not get affected because, again, there's not really good synergy for BULLSEYE. KORATH doesn't go anywhere either. Why is this? Because he does have that KREE team, and he can fit in that KREE team. So technically that would make KORATH better. However, the KREE team is better when KORATH is not in it, so therefore I don't think he should be benefiting from this synergy. Okay, so how do they rank on suicide teams? KORATH, again, he stays the same, and BULLSEYE, well, BULLSEYE actually, he falls down a little bit. Again, the reason is there's just so many better single target damage characters than BULLSEYE, and there's nothing else to his kit, so he falls down. KORATH stays up high because his kit's just solid and it works for so many things. He hits really hard right out of the gate because his ultimate is ready turn 1 and he's super fast. So that is why KORATH ranks so much higher than BULLSEYE, even though their kits are very similar. Okay, so here we have, I'm going to do 3 characters in this little group because they're all very different characters and there's not a whole lot of detail to get into them. Here we have HYDRA Rifle Trooper. He's not very fast, does some pretty decent damage, but his big calling card is he has AoE damage ready turn 1 with his special. And it's not a huge recharge, so it's actually a very small recharge, so it's reusable quite often. That is pretty much all you need to know about HYDRA Rifle Trooper. Then we have Cable here. Cable's a good character, but for raids, he's not the best. He's a little slow. His basic does some good damage. His special is unique, and his ultimate actually does some great damage. And issue is, his ultimate is not ready turn 1. But he has some unique things, like he grants added turn bar to all of his allies on spawn. And on kill, he can gain some speed bar and give it some to Deadpool as well. Now, the last character in this little grouping I'm talking about is Iron Man. Well, Iron Man, he's average speed. He hits hard, but he doesn't really do much else. His basic is okay. His special, which is what you're going to use turn 1, is AoE damage, which is great. His ultimate is really high single target damage, but there are characters that do higher, but it's close. And his passive is nice. It gives extra crit chance. Okay, so how does this really translate? Well, here you can see HYDRA Rifle Trooper is just an ultimate no. You shouldn't use him in a rage. Generally speaking, his speed just isn't good enough. Now, Cable, he's an ultimate Y. Again, his kit is nice, he's good character, but he's a little too slow, so there's better options to use than Cable. Iron Man, on the other hand, is all the way up special. Why not? His speed is better than the other 2 characters, which is a big part in it, but he also frequently will use his AoE damage, which is nice for raids. When you account synergy, HYDRA Rifle Trooper goes nowhere. Cable moves up 1 spot to a basic why not, because he works nice with Deadpool, and that little interaction there is worth mentioning, so I figured that was enough to move him up 1 little slot on here. But again, there's still probably better characters to use than Cable. Iron Man doesn't go anywhere with synergy, because he doesn't really improve with much synergy. For long hauls and raids, the only one that you could really consider would be Vision. But I don't feel that's enough to make him an ultimate why not. However, suicide teams, everything looks a little different. HYDRA Rifle Troopers all the way up to a special Y, which is pretty high for a minion that's not S.H.Le.L.O or KREE. And that's because that first turn AoE damage is pretty nice, and if you build a full AoE team, that can go pretty well. Cable is an ultimate Y because, again, he does some pretty good damage on turn 1. and he also gives speed bar boost to the rest of his allies. So if you have characters, you're going to get your moves off before duplicate characters on the other team. So you can get a rocket ult off before the other team gets a rocket ult off, and that could be really crucial for beating a really tough node. And finally, Iron Man. Where did Iron Man go? Well, he's all the way up to special yes, because again, if you throw Iron Man on a full tech team, that's one of the best suicide teams. Full tech team, which would be something like Vision, Crossbones, Iron Man, War Machine, Rocket, Star-Lord, those type characters, they all work really well together. And so that synergy for taking down a single node is why Iron Man is all the way up as a special yes for suicide. Okay, here we have another interesting character. The Green Goblin. He's not very fast. His basic, there's really not much to talk about. His special is nice if you need to take down a stealth character. His ultimate does some pretty good damage, spread all around, but his passive is really dependent on there being other Spider-Verses on his team. So this translates in raids okay. I would say for raids on his own, he's an ultimate Y. You could use him, but there's better options, so why would you use him? I mean, he does good enough damage, spread it around, there's some interesting things there. He also gives defense down right on turn 1, so that's nice, but not the best choice. With synergy, he doesn't actually move up for raids. In a synergy, if you put him on a full Spider-Verse team, that Spider-Verse team is really good, but it's not a good raid team. There's not enough sustainability, so I don't think he moves up in synergy, with synergy in raids. So he stays as an ultimate Y. However, suicide team, he does get a pretty big jump. He goes all the way to a special why not. Again, he's actually very crucial for a Spider-Verse team because of all the dispelling he does and the defense down he gives, but he's not as crucial as a lot of other characters that are rated ahead of him, so he takes a little bit of a fallback there. And the Spider-Verse team is a good suicide team, but again, Green Goblin's up to a special why not there. So Green Goblin's an interesting character, has some good use in Blitz, maybe one day in Arena, we will see on that end, and not too much for raids, but he does go well on a suicide team. Thor. What do I have to say about Thor? He hits hard, he's too slow, his special isn't reliable enough, his ultimate is amazing, but it's a lot of ability materials to use. So how does this translate? You can see here I have him as a special Y. There are so many better characters to use simply because Thor's speed. Thor is such a great character, but in the game he really is lacking, especially nowadays, and he could be a lot better, and for raids he's not worth bringing along. You add synergy, nothing really happens. The best synergy you can do is throw him on a full Avengers team, give him some extra ability energy, let him do some ultimates more, and added speed up from Black Widow. But again, he's just not worth bringing along, so he stays as a special Y. Suicide, he hits a little hard. If you charged him up, his ultimate's nice, so I moved him up to an ultimate Y, but you still really shouldn't bring Thor along for raids, which is sad. Next we have Punisher. Punisher's passive basically means he deals extra damage to villains and so do other city allies, which means he works really well with the defenders. His special is pretty much useless, his ultimate is amazing, and his basic does some pretty good damage. He also counterattacks anytime someone attacks Daredevil, which is great. For raids, what this means is he is best with the rest of the defenders, so on his own, he is a basic why not because he does some good damage. And he's not the slowest character, but he's not fast. There are slower characters, but he is slow. He's kind of in the middle on the speed end, and it shows here in this ranking, but his damage is really nice, and he does have a pretty open-ended synergy. So I figured he deserved why not territory, but he's basic why not. Now, if you throw him with the rest of the defenders, he gets a big jump up to basic yes, because he works amazing on a defender's team, and the defenders are very good. You don't really need to explain much more than that. Suicide-wise, he is a great character for it. He's still a basic yes. I believe he would be the highest of all of the defenders and all those type characters. Yes, he is. And why is that? Well, that first turn AoE damage does a lot of damage, especially against villains. So it's great if you're just trying to take down one node, especially if there's a lot of villains. Throw Punisher in there. That one ultimate attack will really do a big dent in the other team. Here we have War Machine. War Machine's a really interesting character to consider. He's a touch slower than Iron Man. I believe 1 speed slower than Iron Man, which hurts him actually. A little bit more in raids than it does elsewhere. His basic, all of his attacks hit more than one target, which is amazing. His basic gives offense down to primary target and just does some damage. His special is a hotly debated topic, but it is a lot of piercing damage, and it's all piercing damage, which is nice to get through some tanks. And again, it hits through more than one target. And his ultimate is incredible. Huge damage, huge damage, and hits everybody. Really a great move. Issue is, it takes a lot of ability energy. So on his own, he's just a basic why not, because his big move that you really want to use is just too much ability energy. And in a raid, most of the time you're using his basic, and his basic is okay. There's just better basics to use. And without any other synergy, he's an okay character, but there's better ones to use. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Now, when you count his synergies, he only moves up 1 spot to a special why not. And that synergy is some vision synergy, which is great for him, gives him some added defense. Or putting him with Iron Man is very nice because they both get death proof. There's some other good synergies there, but there's really not enough to talk about. He does move up 1 spot, but not huge. Again, Suicide Team, he goes all the way up to a special, yes, because you put him on that tech team. It will be devastating to take down 1 node. So there's a lot there for some quick battles, but there's just not enough for long, prolonged fights. Pyro, he has some interesting speed. It's not great, not bad. It's in between, probably a little bit on the lower end, but every time he's attacked, he gains speed bar, which is great. All of his attacks hit more than 1 target, which is a great thing for raids. And both his basic and his special do bleeds, and his ultimate does disrupt, and if with Magneto, prolongs bleeds. Great stuff. Special also clears buffs. Fantastic. But, again, he's a little slow. On his own, he's in about the same class as War Machine because he has a very similar style kit as War Machine. So he's a basic why not. He's ranked right at the same spot as War Machine and actually right next to him on this tier list. So there's not a lot to talk about there. There's just not enough on him to really make him shine on his own in raids. However, with Synergy, he does move up 1 spot because the prolonging bleeds with Magneto is very nice and the Brotherhood's a good team, so I feel it was worth 1 bump, but the Brotherhood isn't the best for raids. It's a great Suicide Team though, which is why he's an ultimate yes for Suicide Teams. You put him on with the full Brotherhood in take down 1 node, it does it better than any other team in the game, I would say. So Pyro, use him for 1 hard node with the rest of the Brotherhood, and he will take it down for you. Okay, now here we have Winter Soldier, one of my strongest characters, who sadly is a bit slow. If he had the same speed as Captain America, this would be a very different conversation. Point being, give him the same speed as Captain America, he should have that anyways. But he does do a lot of damage. His ultimate is one of the hardest hitting single targets in the game. His special can do a lot of damage with some bleeds. It would be nice with a little higher conversion rate to RNG dependent. And his basic does some good damage, so he's always doing good damage. Oh, but his passive is pretty much useless. Let's actually take a look at that. Crit chance and crit chance for HYDRA allies. That's what we need more. Crit chance for those amazing HYDRA allies, because those guys are so great in this game. Maybe one day that'll be worth it, but right now it's just not. So how does this mean for raids? I put him as an ultimate Y. You put him in on his own. He's always doing consistently good damage, which is good, and it can help carry you a bit, but he's probably holding you back just because of the speed alone. You give him some good synergy, he will actually move up 1 spot to a basic why not, because if you make him faster, he has a chance to do some more attacks, and that will really help him. But he best shines in raids as a suicide, on a suicide team. Why is that? Well, he's not the fastest character. So most of the characters that can give offense up would go before him, such as Merc Lieutenant. So then you give offense up to your allies, Now you have an offense up Winter Soldier ready to use his big ultimate on turn 1. That thing can take down a lot of characters in this game, one shot. And that is a great thing for a suicide team. Take down a big risk like Rocket right away. With some good critical damage, you can possibly take out Crossbones in one shot. I've done it a few times. I've hit up to 107,000 with his ultimate. So again, that can be really useful for suicide, but because of his speed, Winter Soldier's not really worth using elsewhere in raids. Okay, so we're on the last character here, and I do believe we saved the best character for last, and that's not just because he's my strongest character, but for raids, Rocket. He is, on his own, actually pretty fast, has one of the highest base damages in the game, and all of his moves hit hard. His basic has some splash damage. His special is very, very big single target damage with an automatic assist from Groot and a chance for an assist from someone else, and his ultimate hits everybody. My favorite thing about Rocket for raids is he's cosmic, he's tech, and also both of his special and ultimate are very low on ability cost. So that will come into play in a bit. On his own, Rocket I rank as a basic yes, because he has a lot of just casual synergies if you put him with characters, and he's going to be using his ultimate fairly often. His big issue why he's not higher is he's a little squishy. And his basic is good, but not the best move in the game. He more shines when he has good synergy. And when he has synergy, he is an ultimate yes. There's no doubt about it. He is one of the best raid characters in the game, because if you put him next to Thanos and Star-Lord, he can be ulting every time. You give him Groot on that team as well, that's added damage. And now you put someone like Minerva that heals, keeps him healthy so he doesn't die. He can just be ulting all the time, and every time he kills someone, if Minerva's on the team, she's going to heal your lowest health ally. So his massive ult is actually one of the best heals in the game if you really think about it that way. So Rocket is just incredible for raids, especially if you put him on a good team, and he's even incredible for suicide. You need to take down one node, you put him on a tech team, he will carry that tech team, especially if you put him with Star-Lord. Like a Star-Lord, Rocket, Vision, Iron Man War Machine type team, maybe Crossbones in there somewhere, Kingpin, they all fit pretty well. That team can take down characters fast. Rocket is an absolutely incredible character, and I'd highly recommend working him up, farming him, and using him on raids. So as you can see, that wraps up all the blasters that are in the game except Killmonger, and his video will come at another time. And it explains why I place them where they are in raid ranks. So I hope you guys learned a bit from this, and let me know if you disagree with any of these characters and what you think. And there's a chance on some of these characters I might agree with you. This reflection makes me consider some things, but overall I'm quite happy with how I place them. And I think this is very helpful for you guys, and I hope it is. If you want to talk more about this, feel free to leave some comments in the comments section, or you can go down to my video description, check out the link to my Discord, and you can message me there, and I will gladly talk about it there. There's also a link to a Patreon and a Tippy in the video description if you're interested in supporting the channel. That would be amazing, but you're, again, not obligated to do that. I really hope you guys enjoyed this, and as always, I'm here to help.